alma mater. And he is now head of academic at Mendeley. Mendeley is a reference management software and also a social networking platform that works across Windows, Macs, and Linux, and has great organization features for your PDFs and all the research that you do, but also allows you to connect with like-minded scientists and start discussions in groups around the PDFs. And I think that we'll let William take it from here and show us the wonderful features of Mendeley.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. I appreciate the invitation, and thanks to everyone who has shown up. Let me just adjust the microphone here real quick. Okay, so as he said, my name is William Gunn. I am the academic outreach for Mendeley, and he asked me to speak to your group about Mendeley for life scientists. So I have about 30 or 40 minutes of stuff to talk about, and then we can take some questions at the end. What I'm mostly going to talk about today is the research services provided by Mendeley, and how it can kind of make your academic workflow a little bit easier. So we have probably a wide range of here today, from people who are just hearing about Mendeley to people who, seasoned experts with it. So I'm going to give a brief introduction to is who we are and kind of what we're all about. And then I'll go into specific detail, a couple of things that I think you might be interested in, and I'll talk a little bit about how it compares with some other research management products, and talk about where they overlap and what things are unique to us. And hopefully I'll leave plenty of time for questions afterwards. So these are the main points I'm going to try to hit on, the sort of the problems that we're solving in our unique way, a little bit about the technology that we're using, how we can make writing papers easier, and then I'm going to also talk a little bit about the impact that we're having on science overall. So we are about 40 plus researchers, graduate students, software developers from a variety of US and EU institutions, and it originally started when the two co-founders were working on their graduate degrees, and they just the whole process of managing PDF and annotations and writing was just terrible and clunky. Weren't any good, so they got together and brought in some technical skills, and it has grown to where we have offices on 2 continents, and hundreds of really avid advocates for us all around the world. And so that's kind of a little bit of what we are. What we're trying to do really basically is to connect scholars in the cloud. The research itself, the activity, is really a social activity. Each new development builds on what came before. So the problem is that the tools and the data used a crowdsourcing approach to the problem of making research more efficient. And then there's also some social discovery layer stuff that we added on top of this. But the basic idea is to capture the latent information that is encoded in how an expert works with information that's available to them. So as I was explaining, it's not just a reference manager. That's our desktop client. But it's also a social networking platform and a information discovery tool. The desktop portion that I told you about, that's just a bit of software that organizes PDFs and helps you write papers. And then on the web is where we have our research catalog of, well, we just broke 100 million, so I need to update that slide. 100 documents uploaded from over 1 million researchers and tens of thousands of collaborative groups that have been built around these documents. And that's kind of what makes the version unique in a way, is that yes, it is a social network. We're not asking people to friend each other on yet another social network just for the sake of doing it. We're actually trying to grow the social network around topical and temporal groups of related information. So some people might have a group about, say, zebrafish biology. Some other people might have a group that is, so-and-so's lab weekly journal club. And that's where the networks are growing, out of these connections that already exist. So this is what the basic desktop interface looks like. Anyone who's used Outlook or anything like that recognizes it's just a three-pane interface. So here's your folders and join and that sort of stuff over here to the left. When you click on one of these folders, it shows you a summary of the metadata of the items that are in that folder in this tabular view here. And then if you click on one of these items in the center, it shows you the detailed metadata for that specific item. And you can filter by tags and that sort of stuff over here. And there's a little search box up here. It's kind of nondescript, but this is a really powerful part of the interface. You can filter your searches here and what is displayed in this column by almost any of these fields shown here in the details view. So that's really a pro tip. If you start with search, you can find things really fast. So we wanted to make it easy as possible to get documents into Mendeley to begin with. There's, I think, 10 different ways to get documents into Mendeley. One of the easiest ways is to just grab a folder and drag it onto the Mendeley window, and I'll demo that in just a sec. You can also add files through the add file dialog. And Mendeley will go through and extract the citation details for those things automatically. In addition, you can pull in EndNote or BibTeX or RS databases that you have or can export from existing tools that you're using. We link with some reference management web apps. You can add documents through the online catalog that I mentioned, and I'll show a demo of that. And we also have a bookmarklet tool that allows you to pull in the metadata from online databases that expose this metadata. So there's a lot of ways to do that. When you're just starting, you're probably going to either be adding a lot of PDFs, or you're going to be pulling in your EndNote or BibTeX files. We generally recommend EndNote XML or BibTeX over RIS, because RIS it's an old format and it doesn't distinguish between things like user supplied tags and author supplied keywords, and it also has multiple URL fields that are used for different applications for different things. So it'll mess things up, like DOIs and links to catalog pages versus link to author pages and stuff like that. So let me just show you real quick a demo of how this would work if you were to Mendeley. So I've got it open here, and I'm just going to, I don't want to be deleted folder here. I'm just going to drag in. And this is a folder with a couple papers, and it's going through and it's parsing out all the information. Some of these that it didn't get exactly right, but as you can see, it's going through and looking them up because for this one here, it found a DOI, and so it checked with Crossref, was able to correct that information. So let me tell you a little bit of all this about all the stuff that kind of went on behind the scenes while we were doing that. So when we added those documents, the first thing it did was it looked through the existing database to see if the file fingerprint and title and author matched an existing document, because it wanted to pair that record up so not create a duplicate. So those were just PDFs that I threw into the Mendeley desktop. It was just a file folder full of PDFs.
Hi, William. We have a question from Mike. Would you be able to take that now?
Sure.
Or would you
Yeah,
wait until the
feel
end?
free to stop me at any time. That's fine.
Okay, so Mike was asking what format was that in?
What format? I assume he means the files that I added, and so the files were just PDF files. It was just a file folder here that I've got some PDF files added to, and I just grabbed that and dragged it into the interface. You don't have, it doesn't all have to be PDF files. Our metadata extraction only works currently on PDFs because they have there's a standard for embedding the metadata, kind of like ID3 tags in MP3 files. But you can also add files to these records. So if I wanted to add, supplementary data or something to this PDF, I could have a Word file, an Excel file, I could have a PowerPoint, I could have images, I could add them all here through the add file. But like I said, the metadata, it's currently, the automatic extraction only works for the PDFs. Okay, so I was talking about sort of the import process and all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. If it goes through and it doesn't find that it to a group for people to kind of go back and review in a batch and already go through and do some corrections. With most of these, we get the metadata correct, but there's a few that we don't. So there's a little special folder over here that allows you to check, and we try to make that easy too. If you think the metadata isn't exactly right for this one, you can say check this title against Google Scholar here, and it'll go through there and try to check with Google Scholar and see if it can do a lookup for that. So,
William, I have a question, actually, if you don't mind taking it.
Yeah.
So what, is there a list of sort of annotation software that you already work with? I remember you worked with, you added at the Beyond the PDF workshop, you actually added pretty quickly the Domio tool, but I've gone through some significant upgrades. So is that still a live link, or will you have to add that back in?
Well, for
The one out
third-party
of Harvard.
yeah, the ones that write into the PDF, we actually we don't support those in general, and we don't have a list of the ones that we can read the annotations from and the ones we can't. When we're going through and extracting the metadata, all extracting the XMP-based metadata, which is the author, title, year, journal, and this sort of information here. We're not actually extracting out the notes. So that's sort of a gray area in the field right now. How do you really handle third-party annotations? And XMP has some support for our annotations within it, but then there's no consensus way of how to handle it if multiple people are making an annotation on the same file. So, for example, in our PDF viewer, if this is in a group, and I haven't gotten the groups yet, but I'll briefly talk about it, I can go through and highlight some things here. And other people in the group can go through and highlight this or leave notes on it, and they'll get their own annotation color and their own note timestamp thing. All of those things, what we have to do is we store those separately. We store those distinct from the file. We don't actually write them into the file unless you explicitly say to export the file with the annotations. And the reason for that is two. For one, so that we can enable collaborative annotation and multiple people annotate the same file. And also, when you're making annotations on a file, we don't know if you're making those for your personal private use or if you're making those expecting that at some point this is going to be public and everyone can see them. So we wanted to protect people from, say, taking these PDFs they've annotated, adding them to the group, and then having all of the private notes be available to everyone who joins the group. So when you add PDFs to a group, we need to have a copy of the unannotated version, and that's what we add to the group to sort of protect people from having their private notes exposed unintentionally. We recognize we need to improve the workflow around this, but since we're the first people to really take at this collaborative annotation problem, it's still a little bit up in the air how best to integrate with other services that people currently use to work with PDFs. So, when you pull things in, if you've already annotated them with a third-party tool, your annotations might not show up, or it might just come in as, yeah, we see there's a note there, but we don't know what the text is, something like that.
Okay. So are the notes that are meant to be public, would those be made available at some point through an API, or so that
Yes,
other people can pull them?
We are looking at adding, first of all, we're looking at basically having a way to flag this is an annotation for public release and for not, to kind of make the whole workflow easier. And then for the public ones, of course, then we'll expose via an API method so that you can pull those in, and probably display those on catalog pages as well.
That would be great. Oh, okay, sorry.
All right. So the final thing I should talk about, just around all the import methods, all the different ways you can get information from Mendeley, is through the web importer. There's one here, and I was just on a PubMed page, and I clicked the bookmarklet, which you can get at mendeley.com/import. And it's going to go through and it's going to check all of the links on the page and pull in the metadata for each one. So you can see abstract, journal authors, etc. for each one of these. Then you just click the import button, and it will add it to your library. Well, in some cases, it can download the PDF, and in some cases, it can't. Depends on whether or not the files are predictable, whether or not it's an open access archive. That's an easy way to get PDFs is the next thing I'm going to show you here. So you can see I just added this one here. You can edit tags and notes. You can also edit it right here from the import window. You can add it to your groups and that sort of stuff, all right here. Or you can do it on this page. But maybe one of the easier ways to do it is to run the search on our catalog. So if you can see that we get quite a few results for a query like zebrafish, 811 pages of results. And if I click advanced search, where you can find it by discipline and any of the metadata fields, lots of stuff sort of hidden under the advanced search stuff here. What I wanted to show, I think, was the open access filter. So you can see when I turn that on, all of the things that show have a lot higher readership. And the way that we rank things here when we return the search results is we actually take the number of readers into account in returning our search results back. So, a general query like this, it's somewhere like PubMed, might not return anything useful. With here, we can sort of return what at least the the Mendeley community thinks are the most interesting papers for that general query. So someone has a question? We don't have a batch importer for PubMed IDs. That would be a really great tool to build because our Open API can take a DOI or a PubMed ID as one of the parameters and then match that up with the metadata for the paper. So someone could build a PubMed batch import app or an add-on for Mendeley using our API. And I think that would be pretty cool. Okay, so here's an example of a paper. Got 23 readers. It's open access. And just show you a catalog page here. This is like in our catalog. This is what it looks like on PubMed. What we have that's different is this easy kind of save the PDF to your library button here. Tweet it or Facebook it if you so desire. You have a little snapshot of the readership stats. You see, heavy readership from the biological sciences here. A little bit of demographics. We also have this kind of snazzy PDF preview because this is open access. We can actually show you the entire article just embedded right in the page. Sometimes you don't really know from an abstract if that's exactly the paper you wanted or not. So the PDF preview kind of gives you a little bit of a paper trailer, so to speak. You can also get related research. So based on words found in this paper and some of the readership information, we've been able to pull out research that we think is related to this paper. And so you can add this stuff to your library from here. And this is sort of a new experimental feature, this references tab. I don't think this is actually on the public web, where we're going through and we're pulling out citations that we recognize within the paper, just to make it easier to do citation analysis, and hopefully to make it a little bit easier if you have a document and you want to add all of that document and all its references. That should make that a little bit easier if we can reliably pull all the references for that. So as an example of the catalog page, unique things about it, again, are the related research, the stats, the PDF preview, and the easy add and share buttons here. If you want full text and your library or your institution has access through a proxy, you can add your open URL proxy details here, and you can go into your profile, edit, and add your own access link. And then from this page, if you're on a paper where you have access, then this button will allow you to save the PDF directly to your library, even for non-open access content. I'm not coming from an institutional IP, so this will only show up for me for open access content. But if you add your open URL details here, you'll see this should be all of your licensed content for the people who use open URL. All right, so I've talked a little bit about adding papers, and I just kind of showed you a brief demo of the search on the web. I want to show you a little bit about the search in the desktop, because I think it's pretty fantastic what they've worked on here. So let's see. This is a find as you type search that works across your entire full text of your entire library, or if you're using groups, it'll search within those groups itself. And I just typed a bio, but if I want biochips, then I can go through and narrow my search down rapidly, and find those items there. You can add. I don't have any of these things tagged here, but you can search kind of like you do on a Google search for authors, title of publications, names, years, notes, and not just limited to those. Any of these things like abstract and tags, you can also use those as search operators for your search here, and that will limit what's displayed here to those items. All right, so let's see, what else do I need to tell you about that? Yeah, there's different ways of limiting your search. There's also, if you don't remember the keyword or a tag you've used, there's a drop-down list. It'll show you the list of authors we've extracted from the documents, keywords, tags that you've given, and publications that are found. And so that's kind of a fast and easy way to sort of slice and dice through your collection to find in conjunction with the search. Okay, so it's a little bit about how to get things in, how to work with them once they're in here. If you create a folder and add these documents in here, it's just a drag and drop. You can drag them from here over into the folders or into the groups. And the groups I should probably talk a little bit about while I'm here. there's basically two kinds of groups that we have. There's private groups and public groups. So the private groups aren't visible to the public. They don't have group pages. They're not searchable on Mendeley Web. But these allow you to share the full text of all the PDFs that you have, and basically anything that you could email to someone else, you can share with someone else through a private group. And this also allows you to do cooperative annotation and that sort of stuff there. So that's a great way, and you can put more than just PDF in private groups, so you can share presentations and supplementary information and that kind of stuff. For the public groups, these are pages that are visible on the web. You can go to Mendeley Web and do a search for groups, and it will show you all the lists of groups that are public. You can specify whether it's an invite-only group or anyone can join and contribute. These are really useful for social networking stuff, but they only contain the metadata for the items. They don't actually contain the full text of the documents in the public groups. And you can also tag your groups and that sort of stuff. Give it a discipline, that sort of thing, to make it easier to find on the web. You can upload images and all that sort of stuff. So that's managing documents. Of course, you're probably very interested in how this works for the sort of the output phase of research. And whoops, get it right. So if you've installed our Word plugin, which is accessible through the tools install Word plugin option. The Word plugin says MS Word, but we have a version that works for OpenOffice and LibreOffice, and also works for Word for Mac. We do have some issues with 64-bit Word versions, I think, right now. So that might be a concern for some of you if you're using 64-bit. Basically what this does is it just adds a new toolbar and insert citation. The hotkey for that is Alt-M. And this gives you the same sort of find as you type search through the library. And you can add things here, and it'll format them according to your chosen style. You can add as many as you want. When you're ready to insert the bibliography, you just go to where you want and click the Insert Bibliography button. If you wanted the style, you just select a new style, and it'll go through and reformat. And it'll keep all the page numbers and everything correct for you. It handles the italics and the bolding and ordering and subscripts and all that stuff automatically for you. The specific technology that we use for doing this markup is called the citation style language. So I have to talk a little bit about the citation style language. Citation style language it's a markup language. It's like HTML, kind of how a page should look in a web. CSL tells word processor how a citation should look when it's rendered in that word processor. And it's an open format. Anyone can write a CSL file just like anyone can write an HTML file. And there are open source processors for CSL as well. Using the siteproc.js, but there's parsers for Python and Ruby and Haskell and all kinds of stuff. And anyone can write one of these parsers as well. And so we made the choice to use CSL because we didn't want to create our own proprietary citation rendering language. We wanted to, pull in the community and make something that would give back to the community. The whole point is to keep kind of, to keep the tools for scholarly communication in the hands of scholars. Anyone can write these CSL files, and there's thousands of them. All have their own specific author, and they're up on GitHub for anyone who wants to take a crack at it. There's Mendeley ships with most of the styles that anyone could possibly need. There's more available that you can get and download. There's 2,000 files and more being added. The problem with CSL is that it's this XML-based language, and it's still kind of inscrutable. There's not really any. There's not the analog of like Dreamweaver or CSL, for example. It's very much a you know, break out your text editor and start writing code if you want to write a CSL. But we've tried to do a couple on some simple edits, and we're trying to we're also working on a visual editor that will make it easier to take a citation, move the parts around, and then have it render the correct. CSL, basically, readership trends and statistics, the annotations and the tags and all of this sort of stuff. We don't think belongs to us. It belongs to the scholarly community. We're just kind of the portal for that. We're just serving to distill that into a more valuable form. And so for that, we've got our developers portal. We're sponsoring a competition right now, just to stick in a quick plug here. We're working with the Public Library of Science to reward the best application developed with using our API, $10,001 plus a bunch of Amazon Web Credits. Plus has chipped in second prize for that. And we've got this really great panel of judges, including John Wilbanks, Tim O'Reilly, Werner Vogels, Amazon, and all that kind of stuff. And people have built some really neat stuff. We have BioStore. This is used by one of the guys, Rod Page, who is working on getting the original documents that have described the naming of a particular species in the Mendeley. And of course, these are all old scanned archival documents. There are people who built, Drupal and WordPress plugins, and we've got some stuff that runs on the Elsevier app platform. I want to show you something that's really kind of neat that someone built. Just in one of our internal hack days, someone said, and this was right after the Google Trends thing came out, where you could go in and type in words and it would show you the appearance of that search term over history. They took our corpus and they pulled out appearances of tags, so you can see tag trends. And if you browse through our catalog, you can browse by tag or group, and you can add little wiki-like descriptions for each tag or category on the web. And it's just starting. This is really kind of the first fruits of some of that data. Someone has, a third-party developer, has built this application called ReaderMeter, and you can go to readermeter.org and type in your information. And basically what this does is it kind of computes some of your readership stats based on what it can see from our library. And then it computes this thing called 8 sub r. So if you are familiar with this thing called a Hirsch index, you have a Hirsch index of 4. If you have 4 more papers that each have 4 citations, you analog for that, the 8 sub r is you have an 8 sub r of 7 if 7 or more of your papers on Mendeley have 7 or more readers each. And so he built this kind of neat thing. And it's just an example of one of the kind of cool things you can do with Mendeley. And so you can go through and explore his co-authorship network and their influence levels and sort of things. Another thing that we've been playing around with is the social network graph, where you can join people that have their connections and then color them according to their similarities and what they're reading and how they're self-describing themselves. So there's like a Mendeley group down here and some other colleagues, people from JISC and other places over here. And so that's kind of just a rough idea of things that people were working on. Finally, I just want to say a few words about the business model, because I'm sure people are going to ask if I don't mention this briefly. We're in this for the long haul. We want to be part of the scholarly publishing landscape. We want to be part of the infrastructure for years to come, and to help ease the transition to fully digital publishing, post PDF publishing, into the semantic web and linked data and all that really good stuff. And so the decisions we're making are to set us up to be around for that time. Things like buying into CSL, offering this free client that does so much. And there's always going to be a free client for Mendeley, by the way. And with the open API, anyone can make their own client. And we've got people making clients for Android, for WebOS, for all the different mobile operating systems, and additional ones for iOS, and all kinds of like basically any platform that you can access your stuff on. We have people working on apps to to make it available through. And these are third-party developers that are just using our API to do this. So with that said, we're not aiming for any sort of lock-in. It's absolutely not part of our plans to get people to invest a whole lot of time and effort into it and then keep them around just because it'll be too annoying to switch to something else. We store all of our data in an open format. It's available through the API. And we even use SQLite, which is an open database format to store our local data. So we don't want to keep people on the chain. We want them to be free, to be able to, not just free from in the sort of the grand sense of like promoting, freedom and open access, but free on a very basic practical sense, free from the overhead of, having to organize and, mess around with folders and subfolders and, librarian type stuff just to get a paper written and to remember what you're reading, and mess around with changing your citation formats because Journal A has decided that the period should go, after the page number and not before or something. We want to free people from just that basic stuff as well. And really what we're aiming for in terms of business models is to take a value-added information strategy to build our business by adding value to information through clever analysis, intelligent design, using our usability expertise, and not by getting people invested and making money kind of in proportion to how annoying it would be to move something else. So that's all I have in as far as prepared remarks. Thanks for your time. Thanks for listening, and be happy to address any questions that come up, or demo stuff in more detail, or whatever you'd like. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those are terms that come from the citation typing ontology, which we may or may not use, but that's the general idea. Right, and so that would be the next steps. The first thing that we need to do is to uh, use our usability expertise, and this is an angle that doesn't get actually talked about a whole lot. We like to talk about our technology and how that's, but really I think what our killer skill at Mendeley is, and what's allowing us to erode EndNote's user base is so fast, is that we're really good at making things that people want to use and to getting the usability stuff right. And so we're going to try to take that expertise and to bring people into making more annotations and sharing those annotations more. So that's the first step. And at first, these are just going to be textual annotations that that initially only have value to the people that create them. Then they're going to become more valuable to the people that, once they're made public, to the people that see them. And then the third layer after that is layering on what kind of annotation they are, characterizing them somehow so that you can, so that you have actual textual annotations, but you can actually have a type of annotation that is, whether it links to another document, and And that's where you bring in some more of the linked data kind of concepts that I was, alluding to on that slide. But, we have no illusions of this being something that's right around the corner. It's going to take a long time to build up the critical mass to get to kind of change people's workflows and habits and to bring people slowly into this. But but as people start to see that a few basic example apps of how this adds value, then they get more into doing it, and when you get more people into doing things, then you can do more stuff with it and come out with another good example that's maybe more general, which then gets more people in, and it kind of the two things kind of work off of one another that way. So that's how we're trying to grow it, and I really hope that we can get some of these annotations, for example, either shown via NIF on relevant pages at PubMed or in your own internal catalog, and also to consume them vice versa to make our catalog more valuable. But I think the ontology stuff is a ways off, just because it's going to take time to do all the behavior change and the practices and everything to get to that stage where that's really useful. But that's certainly something that we've got in mind.
Thank you.
Perfect, thanks. Are there questions from outside that we haven't addressed yet?
Hi, this is Todd Harris from Wormbase. I'm kind of an interloper on this call.
Sure.
Excellent.
So during the course of this call, I just wrote a little Perl interface to the API, and I have a couple of questions about that. The documentation seems a little sparse.
The documentation is a little sparse. So I should point you to there's a Google group where we have a couple of people that are really good at answering questions there, and we're trying to build the documentation a little bit better. I mean, it's a bigger challenge than we're equal to at the moment, because this API is new for us. We don't have a whole team on it, so we're actually trying to depend on the community to some degree to help us write the documentation as well. So we've got this up kind of in a wiki format, but we do have some dedicated people on the API now. We're constantly adding more methods. So happy to answer questions if you have anything specific about that.
Actually, I was going to ask you about it looks really nice. I mean, I can definitely see where you're going with it. I was going to ask, in particular, one of the methods is called related papers. Is that is that based on social metrics, or is it do you have some algorithm behind the scenes that's identifying those papers?
There's an algorithm behind the scenes that works, and right now it's simply based on the related papers that you'll get from this call are going to be identical to the papers that you would get from this page. So this is the same stuff, and it's based on the information within this paper, you see it's basically just querying the same internal service to get that out.
Okay.
So it's just based on the paper right now. We're trying to build more social stuff into it.
Okay, great. Looks good. Yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
We have time for one more quick question. Okay, I think we're then pretty good. Okay, so I would like to thank all of the folks that are on the call. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, William. This is really a very nice tool, and just to let everybody know, NIF is trying to work with this group and many others to try and expose some of the data that we have that is linked to the papers. That will be coming out probably sometime in the fall. And I think that, it's a real benefit to have all of these projects sort of work together, because we certainly can't all solve the world. So if each of us takes a little chunk and all of us try to work together, then it tends to work out a little bit better. So again, thank you all, and thank you again, William. And thanks for Jonathan for getting all of the back-end stuff done for this webinar. So I think this has been very nice.
All right, so Anita, with regards to your specific mention about incorporating more of this data and information, we should probably follow up separately via email. We're currently working on something with F1000 right now to show some of their evaluation stuff on our pages and vice versa. And I would imagine that we could probably do something very similar with you. So if you don't mind, I'll just bring our business manager into the email thread, and we can proceed from there.
Yep, that sounds perfect. Yeah, we're working on actually a way to disseminate some of the data annotations. So we'll pull those into NIF, and then we're already putting them into PubMed. But we want to make sure and get that behind a consistent API so that all of those can be made available.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Well, thank you all very much, and I believe that I will now.